Minister, first of all, I want to begin by saying I think your personal response to this, your work in this whole area has been extraordinary, and I am very grateful to you and a great admirer of your commitment and the compassion that you evidently show in every interview I've listened to, and in how also you responded in the Dáil. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is, I do really appreciate, and I think it's important to pull out of your speech, that that the teams have triaged 21,000 referrals, that there have been 225,000 appointments delivered, and every one of those are delivered by people who are incredibly committed, incredibly compassionate, and absolute professionals in the delivery of services. And I think that's important for parents to hear that, because I know as a parent, I panicked when I heard it, let alone if you don't have access to the sort of information we have, that it is a really frightening prospect of what happens if your child develops a psychosocial disability and requires a response to it. Where is the state going to be in that? And it is important in the context of all of this that we remember that an awful lot of delivery happens exceptionally well all of the time. However, we cannot speak about this and not have a but somewhere. And I mean, I suppose I think the briefing that we got from mental health reform, which I'm sure you received and heard about in the Dáil last night and in the statements, highlights the things that we need. It highlights where there are acute areas and acute gaps. And I suppose one of the things, and this comes up in other disability services, why don't we have memorandums of understanding with private sector? Why don't we fill the gaps more intentionally and accept private assessments, accept private services, and move to do, at the height of COVID, we were able to do that with private hospitals. This is an ongoing, it's not new. Why can't we move to fill the gaps while we recruit? Because I do also accept from your speech the fact that we have a 33% increase in demand, that we have, of the actual cases, we've had 21% increase over a very short period of 20 to 21. And I mean, I think in the context of COVID, that was probably understandable, but perhaps would happen anyway, because life is very different. It's very different for our young people. The pressures that are on them are completely different. So the potential for needing even an assessment, whether it goes on to full service or not. Within the services also, though, an inconsistency in the threshold of whether you're in or not. And I want to share with you a little bit of what one mother has sent in to me. And that is that her child, who's 11, has a diagnosis of autism and intellectual disability, has tried to access CAMHS via the local team, and they put together a very in-depth application, set out the clear reasons why they needed to access the service, and proved that all other avenues were exhausted by the use of therapy and engagement with the team. The child is self-harming and suffers from chronic anxiety, exhibits behaviours like bashing their head off the wall, the table, the banister, kneeing himself in the face. But CAMHS have come back twice saying that he didn't meet the criteria for mental health assessment. After, it took for the family to threaten with family breakdown, and that they would need to find him residential or foster placement, but they still wouldn't agree to see him and couldn't give, but they still wouldn't agree to see him and had given 4 engagement sessions with the team only, but not with the child. So what threshold is there? Is it clear? It's clearly not consistent across the country. And I think that comes out through the report and through some of the commentary that we received on it, that there is that, at what point is a child, do they trigger that criteria to know, and is that for sure? Is it assured? Because it would appear that depending on who is doing the assessment, then the child is either in or out. And I think that's one example of several other emails that exhibit similar behaviours, similar level of desperation on behalf of the family. So we need a clarity certainly in that. And I appreciate that's not something you just do in a statutory instrument or whatever, that it needs the professionals in the area to do that. But certainly that review is also required. And I suppose we can't have a two-tier system. We can't have a system whereby parents detect a growing psychosocial issue with their child, and then they either have the resources and they can go down a private route and have a response for that child, or they don't. And if they don't, then there is that level of fear and that level of whether their child is going to be treated. We need to address that. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, and thank you very much.